Why did the Norns veil their design from Atreus? They wove cycles of vengeance, fatherhood, and ruin. Walk-blind Kratos' path from Spartan wrath to Norse exile was not fate's echo but its forge. A prophecy hung on Atreus' blood, yet the Norns let him walk blind. Did they fear his choice would unravel their loom? To the end are they designs spun. The truth lies where Kratos' rage and the Norns' threads converge, a design unseen, a destiny unspoken. The Norns wove his fury, they bound his choices. Their loom spun the cycles of vengeance and fatherhood that define him. Kratos' rage was no flow, it was thread. From Greece to Norse, his journey mirrored their design, a blade sharpened by loss, a father's love twisted into sacrifice. Atreus, the boy who would be God, walks a path the Norns kept veiled. What does this say of myth? That fate is not foretold but forged. The weight of fatherhood, the price of God's these are the anvil and hammer of their craft. Kratos' story is their tapestry, and its meaning lies in what was never spoken. The Norns do not whisper, they weave. In Greek myths, gods demand sacrifice in blood. Kratos paid his due to Ares, Zeus, the hollow thrones of Olympus. His blade carved a path through divine arrogance but never a path of his own. In Norse realms, the pattern shifted. A boy named Atreus became a name whispered in Asgard's shadows. Kratos learned to hold a child, not a sword, yet the loom turned. Vengeance gave way to guardianship, rage to quiet resolve. Did the Norns guide his hands, or merely read the thread already spun? Their design was not in the chaos of his choices, but in what those choices concealed. A cycle broken not by defiance, but by a father's unspoken vow to bear the weight of two worlds. The tapestry is complete. Atreus will never know the hands that shaped his birthright. The Norns' silence is their mercy, and Kratos. He walks the edge of fate, a blade that cuts both ways. What remains unsaid is the pattern's heart. What remains unsaid is the cost. The cost was woven before the first thread. In the Eddas, the Norns are silent loomkeepers, their hands steady, their eyes forward. In *, god of war Ragnarok *, their hands tremble. Their words to Atreus layered Veledo not reveal fate. They * invite * him to misread it. The Eddas name them as fate's scribes. The game names them as fate's sculptors. They do not record Kratos' path. They * carve * it. Every prophecy is a chisel, every riddle a contour. Atreus walks blind not because fate is unknowable, but because the Norns have never offered the whole shape. Their dialogue is a labyrinth. When they speak of a future Atreus cannot control, they do not warn. They * direct *, the boy's blood is ink on their tapestry. His questions are threads they pull to tighten the weave. Kratos' rage, his choices, his failure resol are knots they tie and untie to test the pattern's strength. The Norse saga made them passive, the game makes them patient. They do not merely witness Ragnarok. They * stage * it, their prophecy is not a vision, it is a script. Atreus' role is written in a language he cannot yet read. What the Eddas omit is the architect's shadow. What the game reveals is the loom's hidden gears. The Norns did not predict Kratos' journey, they designed it. And in their silence, they ensured no god nor son of one would ever see the full design. The well of fate did not whisper, it did not waver. Its waters held the shape of Kratos' blade, the arc of his son's questions both swallowed by the Norns' silence. Atreus stood at its edge, voice raw with the weight of unspoken truths. The Norns carved his path in runes no mortal eye could read. What god, what son of Odin, could unravel a design woven before the first branch of Yggdrasil split? The prophecy was not a warning, it was a cage. Atreus' fire, his hunger to burn the past each embers nudged by Kratos' footsteps, each choice a shadow of the Norns' will. Did they fear his knowledge, or did fate demand blindness to be whole? The Norns let Atreus name the storms, never the hands steering them. His rage, his grief tools sharpened in the dark. When the 9 realms fell, it was Kratos' hand that broke the final thread, not Atreus, never Atreus. The Norns' design was a paradox. They let the past repeat, yet reshaped its echo. They let a god's son believe he fought for truth, while truth was the veil. What remains when the architect's silence is the only law? dread is not in what is known. It is in what is felt, hatching, gnawing, their asterisk yet never named. The Norns did not hide fate. The Norns did not hide fate. And in that unseen, Kratos Norse saga became not a choice, but a script, a script Atreus never read. A script the Norns never spoke, only water, only runes, only the sound of a prophecy fulfilled in silence. The looms of the Norns spun threads of violence, yet their design was not a chain. In Greece, Kratos' rage was a blade turned outward, a theological truth, not a failure. Gods bled, myths shattered, and the void hungered, but in the north that same fire became a forge. He learned to wield silence where once he screamed. The Norns did not command this shift. They merely wove the pattern, letting him stumble toward the thread he could unmake. Atreus watched his father's hands tighten, then loosen. He saw the struggle to bury the old god, to plant a seed in ash. But the boy could not see the runes etched into fate, how every strike, every restraint was a knot in a tapestry already whole. The Norn script was not written in blood, but in the spaces between breaths. A father's chokehold on his own shadow. A son's question, why do you hold back? The answer lay in the water. In Greece, rivers ran red. In the north, they froze then thawed. Kratos' rage was never meant to end in fire. It was a prison, yes, but also a mirror. The Norns knew what he did not, that to break the cycle, he must become its architect. To kill without becoming the killer, to rule without the throne, and so Atreus inherited a paradox. A father who bled but did not curse, who fought not to conquer but to end. The Norns' design was quiet, no thunder, no visions. Only a man choosing again to let his son walk a path unmarked by vengeance. The loom still turns. But the tapestry is complete. The well of Urd's mist clings to Kratos' blade, a relic of visions half-grasped. The Norns spoke in whispered riddles, their gnarled hands braiding roots that choked the light. Atreus listened, but their truth remained veiled like the faces of the weavers themselves, lost in the fog. Why guide a man toward a door you refuse to open? The question festers, raw as the scars on his son's palms. Ragnarok's fires were no accident. The Norns' roots coiled through every choice. The frost giants' rise, the Aesir's hubris, the boy who wore vengeance like a second skin. Yet when Kratos stood at the well's edge, blade raised, the Norns said nothing. Only mist, only silence. Santa Monica's reimagined myths twist the old tales. These were not passive seers, but gardeners pruning a storm. Rage carves its own logic. If the Norns wove fate, why let Kratos rage blind? Why let Atreus stumble through shadows, a pawn without a script? The answer gnaws, they needed the rage. Needed the boy to reject it, a cycle broken not by knowledge but by ignorance. The loom's design was never his to see. The tapestry shows a god's death, a son's rebirth. But what of the weavers? Their roots dig deeper than Yggdrasil. What if their fate was a cage and their silence the key? The Norns wove not with thread, but with time. Their looms hummed beneath Yggdrasil's roots, spinning Kratos' fate in spirals of retribution and paternal fire. They did not foresee his path, the sculpted it. Each murder, each lesson carved into his son's soul, was a stitch in their design. The blood of the Greek gods, the frost of Norse winters, the tremor of a child's whispered father all were measured weights on their scales. Kratos' rage was no flaw, it was a fulcrum. The Norns knew his Spartan heart would crack under the weight of loss, that grief would forge him into a weapon, a teacher, a mirror. They let him kill, let him weep, let him name Atreus as both heir and hope. Every cycle of vengeance was a loop in the pattern, every act of fatherhood a counterbalance. Ragnarok's ashes were not an end, but a checkpoint. His survival hinged not on strength, but on the boy who carried his legacy in a name, a bow, a secret. Yet the Norns' silence was their masterpiece. Atreus, bright with curiosity and blood, was never meant to trace the threads. To know his father's fate was a prison, to unknow a freedom. The Norns let Kratos believe he broke chains he only bent. Generations of tragedy folded into a single, redemptive arc. How many lives must be burned to fuel one? How many choices erased to make room for grace? The cosmos does not give balance without a price. And the Norns eternal, unseen collect every debt in whispers and wounds. What then remains for the sons of such design? The Norns did not merely observe the storm, they had foreseen thee wove the storm itself. Kratos' blade carved the script they had spun. His rage in the old world was not a flaw, but a shadow of a design he couldn't yet see. What is fate, if not the shape of wounds before they bloom? The cost was never the blade in his hand, but the silence after each strike. The Norns' design was not a prison of inevitability, but a forge. The forge was not for gods, but for a father. Every vengeance, every debt, every broken throne each was a hammer shaping what the Norns knew he could not see, a man. Atreus was never meant to hold the loom. The prophecy was a thread, not a map. To know the end is to unmake the journey. Kratos' redemption was not a choice against fate, was the only choice the Norns allowed. They did not bind him, they gave him the weight of a future that demanded he carry it. What remains when the design is known? A god reduced to a man. A father haunted by the hands that shaped him. The Norns' silence was not cruelty, but the price of growth. They let him bleed, let him break, let him become. And in the end, the question is not whether Kratos escaped his fate. It is whether he ever truly lived within it. The Norns didn't merely predict Kratos' path, they wove it. Silent architects, they let him burn through rage, through vengeance, through the ash of gods. His survival hinged on his role as Atreus' father, a chain they never unshackled. Atreus was shown fragments enough to follow, never to question. What if their prophecy was a loom? Each thread a choice, each not a sacrifice. They let him kill, they let him fail. They let him become, but the pattern was theirs, the trap, a fate he couldn't unsee. His blade carved their design, his blood sealed their test. And Atreus, blind to the weave, carried the truth like a stone, a truth the Norns never spoke. A truth that asks, when every step was scripted, did Kratos ever truly break free? Or was his rebellion the fate they needed him to fulfill? The Norns did not merely predict Kratos' path, they wove it. Silent architects, they let him burn through rage, through vengeance, through the ash of gods. His survival hinged on his role as Atreus' father, a chain they never unshackled. Atreus was shown fragments enough to follow, never to question. What if their prophecy was a loom? Each thread a choice, each not a sacrifice. They let him kill, they let him fail. They let him become, but the pattern was theirs, the trap, a fate he could not unsee. His blade carved their design, his blood sealed their test. And Atreus, blind to the weave, carried the truth like a stone, a truth the Norns never spoke. A truth that